Chris Wallace joins us now for more on his one-on-one. Chris, what was the best question that you asked that reaped the best answer? Don't tell us the answer, because I don't want to spoil your special, but when you were going through them, what worked out the best for you?
Well, first of all, they're like my children. I like all of my questions. But I would say that the two other areas that I talked about with him that were very interesting was one about terror and the criticism that you hear from all sides that this president doesn't react appropriately when there's a terror attack, that when James Foley is beheaded, he goes out and plays golf, that when you have the Brussels attack, he stays in Cuba and goes to a baseball game. And I asked him about whether or not he actually feels the terror threat that most Americans feel. And the other area that we explored, I think that's very interesting, and I think will make the most news, is, and he hadn't been asked about this since last October when he was on 60 Minutes, and he gave Hillary Clinton basically a clean bill of health on the idea that she hadn't affected or endangered national security by her private email. Of course, since then, we found out there were 2,000 emails that had classified information, 22 had top secret information. So I asked him, does he still give her that same clean bill of health? And then following up on that, can he assure the American people that in the FBI investigation into the Clinton case, that the ultimate decision on how to handle it will be a legal decision and not a political decision?
Ooh. You did a great job of teasing that. I am now desperate to hear his answers. Juan Williams has a question for you. Juan.
So, in addition to the big interview, gosh, it's 20 years of Fox News Sunday. I guess I'm the senior guy sitting on that panel. 20 years, Tony Snow to Chris Wallace. Great show. So let me ask you, when you are talking to this president, and the Democrats always say, oh, we don't like to come on Fox. We have this problem, we have that problem. But here's President Obama sitting down with you. What does he have to say about the Republican campaign, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Governor Kasich?
Well, I didn't ask him, and first of all, thank you for all those nice comments, Juan. I didn't ask him specifically about that because, frankly, he doesn't have any problems taking off and criticizing Cruz and Trump. And he does take a veiled shot at both of them in this thing when he's talking about the terror and some of the comments they've made at, like, carpet bombing. But I did ask him, and I thought this was interesting, about the anger that we're seeing in this election and the fact that it's not just on the Republican side, but also on the Democratic side with the Bernie Sanders voters. And I said, do you feel any personal responsibility that after 8 years of your presidency, so many millions of Americans still feel cut out, still feel like there's a rigged game in Washington and a rigged game on Wall Street? He takes some responsibility, but I will say he shares the blame with the Republicans.
Jesse?
Chris, it's Jesse here. Did he know he was doing a Fox News interview, or did you run into him at the library or something? I mean, this guy hasn't done any Fox except the Super Bowl interviews. How did you get this interview?
Well, you know, the key is timing. And in life and in this interview, because we've asked him every week for the last 8 years. The last time that I interviewed him was in the Indiana primary in May of 2008, so it only took me 8 years. But I had a sense that because he's pushing Republicans so hard to give a hearing and a vote to Merrick Garland, that he might want to reach out to our audience. Yeah. That's the pitch we made, and they agreed to it.
Good.
Wow. Ooh, that was crafty. Yeah, I love me some Chris Wallace. Good one. That was great. So congratulations. You're making us very proud, and I'm glad that the president sat down with you. Wise choice. Do you think that it went so well, that it was quite auspicious, that he might actually come on Fox again?
Well, at the end of the interview, after the cameras were up, I sort of asked him, and he said, well, listen, you always treat me fairly, Chris, but he didn't give an answer. So I think it's a definite maybe at the most. But, you know, he's not going to be there that much longer, so what the heck. I will say one other really interesting thing in the interview. We have this big, serious issues interview, but also this was a sentimental journey for him because he was a professor at the University of Chicago at the law school in 2004. We talk as we walk through the law library. You saw those walking shots of us, and I talk about the last 8 years. Best day in the White House, worst day, biggest accomplishment, worst mistake. We end up at the office where he wrote the book as a law professor, Dreams from My Father. And it's so interesting. We go in, it's a cubby hole. It's a broom closet. He was there in 2004, and I say it's a heck of a journey from there to the Oval Office. And what he has to say about that is very interesting.
All right.
Hey, Chris, last question for me. I was just curious if he mentioned me at all, because we haven't talked in a while, and he still has my
He
sweatshirt.
did, but we cut that part of the interview out, Greg.
Did he say anything about what he plans to do? And he's the youngest. He'll be the youngest former president, I believe. So there's plenty of time to catch up on your reading. What do you think? Did he have any inclination, say what he's planning on doing?
Well, it's interesting because one of the questions I asked him is, do you feel this job has aged you? And he said, well, yeah, I'm 8 years older. But he said, I don't think emotionally or mentally it has, because he says it's so invigorating. Actually, I'm giving an answer here, which I'm not supposed to, but I will, because it's interesting. He says, but I have a feeling 4 or 5 months after I'm out of office, I have a feeling I'm going to suddenly realize, man, that was really a turbulent time, and there was a lot of pressure on me, and there'll be almost like some post-traumatic stress that goes on. I will say, off camera, I asked him, because he's going to stay in Washington because his daughter is still going to be in high school, and there's been talk that he might move into the neighborhood that I'm in. And I said, Mr. President, you're not going to move into my neighborhood, are you? And he said, you don't want me to screw up the traffic there, do you? And I said, frankly, no. And he said, no, don't worry, I'm not moving into your neighborhood.
Wow. Good stuff, Chris.
But he knows where you live.
What a great, yeah, he knows where you live. Yeah, interesting. All right, Chris, thank you so much. We look forward to watching it. Chris's exclusive interview with the president airs on Sunday on the Fox News channel at 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern.